Hello everybody. Roger says hey. Scarlett's asleep under the desk. So, it has been a little while since I have done any Sabaton, but I have been meaning to get back to it, and today we're finally here. We're going to be learning about Ghost Division. Now, I will admit that when I first saw this months ago, I didn't really know what the Ghost Division was, and I still don't really have a great concept of it. I just know what I've been told by a lot of you guys in the comments, and I don't know a ton about Rommel other than what I've seen on Patreon. I am doing the World at War series from 1973, all 26 episodes over on Patreon. If you're interested in that, you'll find my Patreon link in the description in the pinned comment. I recently did the episode, I think it was episode 8, that was on North Africa, and Rommel was there with his tanks. Now, I don't know if they were the Ghost Division in Africa or if this refers to more in the European theater. I guess we're going to find that out because you guys know that I like to do the history portion of this before I get into the actual song by Sabaton. That way I have some idea about what the song is talking about. Otherwise, the lyrics and all of that stuff would be pretty meaningless, I think, to me. So we're going to watch Indy Nidell. And I think he's got, shoot, I forgot their names. Is it Joaquim? Is this Joaquim, or is Joaquim one of the other ones? They'll introduce themselves at the beginning of this. But I'm really looking forward to learning about this and learning about why they're called the Ghost Division. Is it because they kind of snuck up on people? So yeah, let's take a look at the history of the Ghost Division.
Hello everyone, my name is Erwin Rommel.
Yes, and I am Erwin Rommel's assistant, Candy. And this is Sabaton history.
I was hoping he would tell me his real name.
You asked for it, and now you got it.
Ghost Division.
You wanted the best?
You got the best!
Ghost
What is going on?
Division!
Wasn't expecting this.
At 5:30 a.m. on May 10th, 1940, the great German gamble in the West, Case Yellow, was about to begin. General Major Erwin Rommel had just a few months earlier been transferred from the Führer Begleit Battalion to the command of the German 7th Panzer Division. As part of the 15th Motorized Armee Corps, it would be the mission of his 7th to guard the right flank of Panzer Group Kleist, which was to drive a Schwerpunkt into France. His immediate goal was to penetrate the Belgian border defenses and push through the densely forested and hilly terrain of the Ardennes forest as quickly as possible. Time was essential. They only had a short window of 3 or 4 days to cross the River Meuse. If they did not manage that, the whole offensive might fail.
Okay, so they just jumped into this, and I had no idea where they were talking about. Okay, but I'm trying to get my bearings. So the red part is Germany, the green is Belgium, the darker blue is I'm guessing that's Luxembourg, right? And then the lighter blue / green is going to be France. Okay, is that where we are?
As quickly as possible. Time was essential. They only had a short window of 3 or 4 days to cross the River Meuse. If they did not manage that, the whole offensive might fail. From the get-go, Rommel pushed his division hard. Vital to his advance were the motorcycle and armored reconnaissance units of Kreuzschützen Battalion 7, who raced ahead to scout and clear the quickest route for his tanks. These ultra-mobile units could not only cover a large distance much more quickly than any tank, but also could carry enough firepower to tackle obstacles and resistance. Advancing rapidly, the division moved the first day across the river Ourthe and made headway to Dinant, advancing 90 kilometers in a single day. They soon outpaced their neighboring units, the 5th Panzer Division to the north and the 23rd Infantry Division to the south, and contact was repeatedly lost. With the Meuse just 35 kilometers away, Rommel wanted to rest for a minimal amount of time and be on the move again as quickly as possible. Looking neither left nor right, he raced ahead with his forward units of his tanks, keeping close contact only with his reconnaissance units. At Dinant, they smashed through a strong French force, and the 7th got its first real taste of armored combat. By the afternoon of the 12th, his forces had already reached the mighty River Meuse. Now, this far, Rommel had enjoyed the blessings of his superior, General Hermann Hoth, who supported the idea of aggressive tank spearheads. Taking risks was necessary, and thanks to Rommel, the Meuse had been indeed reached in record time. But it needed to be crossed. Kleist, commanding the whole Panzer Corps, opted to rest his units for the night. After they had reorganized and gotten enough support from the air, they would begin the crossing of the Meuse late afternoon the next day. Rommel, however, thought that air support would be modest at best, and instead ordered only a short rest for his division. At first light, the 7th went on the attack again. It was a hard fight. The French would not let them cross without resistance, but the hasty attack prevented the French from putting together enough force to stop them. Personally leading his tanks across the Meuse, Rommel remained always close to the fighting. From his experience as a stormtroop leader in the Great War, Rommel knew the importance of keeping the initiative. Speed would be both their sword and their shield. The faster they advanced, the more likely it was to catch the enemy off guard. Okay,
I have to stop for a sec. I also don't know when this takes place, because I don't think they said that either. They just kind of like jumped into Rommel being transferred to this division, the 7th Panzer Division or something. Is this towards the beginning of the war when Germany invaded France through Belgium, the Netherlands? I'm really kind of lost on when this is happening. A little rusty on the timeline with World War II. So, also the mention of the stormtroopers, that just sparked Star Wars in my mind. I'm not a huge Star Wars fan. I'm more of a Star Trek fan, but I've of course heard the term stormtroopers before, and I did know the Star Wars got that from the Nazis, actually. I wonder how that goes down today, like having something in popular culture named after the Nazis. That seems like it would get a lot of backlash today, but I don't know. Star Wars is, still really popular, so it's interesting to think about, actually.
And their shield. The faster they advanced, the more likely it was to catch the enemy off guard. They had to ensure that the battle would be fought on their terms.
The invasion has begun. Shaking the ground with a force of 1,000 guns. First in the line of fire, first into hostile land, tanks leading the way.
While the mass of German troops was busy crossing the Meuse all that whole day, Rommel did not even think of rest. He had to move west, ever west. It did not take long for strong French and Belgian forces to find them. Their superior heavy Char B-1 and SOMUA tanks threatened his troops with disaster time and time again. But Rommel's energetic leadership and improvisation skills gave him the upper hand. He was not afraid to take immense risks now, as this whole endeavor was one big risk anyway. For example, one misty morning they were surprised by a French tank attack. Rommel went right up to the front, ordering his troops to fire their signal pistols at the incoming tanks. Surprised and confused, the French tanks veered off. That gave Rommel's artillery enough time to find its targets. By the night of the 14th, the Germans had successfully punched through the last line of defense at the Meuse River. The command, "Pursue with all weapons," meant that French resistance in that area had been broken. The next day, Rommel found himself staring down the French-Belgian border at Montcornet, as a halt order was imposed on all of Hoth's divisions. They were standing in front of the extended Maginot Line. It was not as well fortified as the Maginot Line to the east and south, but still dangerous enough that they were given the direct order to not risk the tanks and leave it to the infantry to break through. By late afternoon of the 16th, though, Hoth gave the cautious order to probe the defenses. However, he almost immediately clarified that no breakthrough should be attempted. But Rommel was long gone by then. The 7th Division crossed the French border on its own and spotted a whole system of interlocking concrete bunkers with armored cupolas, tank ditches, and other obstacles. At first glance, it seemed impossible to break through without heavy artillery and air support. But as the sun was fading, Rommel decided to attempt something unseen before in military history, a surprise armored night attack directly against a fortified line while on the move. It was near suicidal, but it was also the last thing the French fortress divisions had anticipated that night. The first tanks of Rommel's armored wedge smashed through the first defenses before the French were able to react. Still, resistance was formidable. Vehicles were knocked out left and right by anti-tank guns and artillery firing from the bunkers. Nevertheless, enough German tanks were already within the perimeter to silence the forward bunkers with direct hits. In that lull, the 7th Combat Engineers moved into action, throwing themselves with satchel charges and flamethrowers against the fieldworks. Firing on the move to all sides, the panzers sped on, quickly followed by the agile motorcycle companies. The only way to escape now was forward. At top,
You know, whenever I see
all sides, the panzers
this stuff happening, I mean, I've seen footage throughout, several wars where they show it at night. It's crazy. You can see all of the bullets, everything being fired because they're lit up at night. You don't really see that during the day in the same way. All you see is the impact points during the day. But to see everything just flying through the air at night is extra freaky. Like, if the daytime warfare didn't scare you enough, the nighttime warfare surely would, with seeing all of that stuff. It's just, I'm just so, impressed is the wrong word because obviously this is war, but still, it's kind of like an impressive sight to see that much firepower just in the air,
panzers sped on, quickly followed by the agile motorcycle companies. The only way to escape now was forward. At top speed, they raced towards the French artillery, never stopping. At 11 at night, they had finally punched through the second line and suddenly saw only open terrain in front of them. Rommel wrote this in his diary: "We were through the Maginot Line. It was hardly conceivable. 22 years before, we had stood for 4.5 long years before those self-same enemy and had won victory after victory, but yet finally lost the war. And now we had broken through the renowned Maginot Line and were driving deep into enemy territory. It was not just a beautiful dream, it was reality."
So did this Maginot Line, which I remember from the World War series, they talked about it in the episode of Germany basically invading France. So I'm assuming that's what's going on here. This is at the beginning, where Germany invades France. Is he saying then that line also existed in World War I? That's what it sounds like to me. That they had a hard time breaking through it in World War I, and France kind of created it then. But I thought that they said in the World War series that they were building it for World War II. Maybe they had built it for World War I, and then it kind of like became a little dilapidated. Is that the word? Like they didn't keep it up or whatever, and so they had to kind of rebuild it for World War II. Maybe that's what's going on. I don't know.
But
I guess the
even
difference
this
is tanks,
unimaginable
right?
success would be only temporary if not exploited. Instead of stopping, Rommel drove his armored spearhead onward, speeding at night over the French roads toward the city of Avesnes. They suddenly crashed right into the French 5th Motorized Infantry Division, which had neatly parked its tanks and vehicles on the roadside before going to sleep. Now, they awoke to the sound of grinding metal and the fire of heavy guns. Paralyzed by the sudden, violent appearance, the surviving French scattered in all directions, throwing down their weapons in panic. Rommel was gone as quickly as he had arrived. All along the road to Avesnes, the French were caught by surprise, and soon the night was illuminated by burning tanks and trucks. By 6 a.m., Rommel stood at the Sambre River, but as the sun rose, he came to the grim realization that he was in a seriously dangerous situation. He'd been so busy advancing, almost 50 kilometers over the night, that he had not noticed that only the few tanks of his spearhead and a handful of motorcycle platoons had been able to keep up with his ludicrous speed. In fact, much of the main body was still at the Maginot Line and on Belgian territory. Ammunition and fuel were low, so Rommel ordered his battered and exhausted tank crews to guard the bridge, while he himself would establish contact with the rest of his forces. It must have dawned on him that his daring exploit had left his forces isolated in the midst of enemy territory. So, pedal to the metal, the crew of his armored command vehicle raced back along the same road back to the east. News spread fast. French soldiers spoke of a German breakthrough, causing further chaos and confusion. French high command tried to make sense of the reports, which seemingly multiplied the advancing forces by the hour. No one knew where this German division was or what it had planned. So this operation earned the 7th Panzer Division the French nickname La Division Fantôme, the Ghost Division.
They are the Panzer Elite, born to compete, never retreat. Living or dead, always ahead, fed by your dread.
So did France not have troops in that area then to encounter the Germans? Is that why they lost track of them?
On his way back, Rommel encountered whole columns of confused, directionless French soldiers whose officers did not know how to react to the news. It could not have helped that suddenly a German armored vehicle was racing towards them from the other direction, firing wildly and scattering them off the road. Rommel ordered his driver not to stop for anything, but suddenly they were behind a large column of trucks moving towards the front. Now, bear with me here. The convoy of 40 trucks was guarded with machine guns, and Rommel drove up and passed it. Then he stopped the lead vehicle, told the French officer to stand down, and then ordered the crew of 40 trucks to get out and disperse. And he basically did this with his commanding tone and his German general's uniform alone. And this is not the only occasion he did something like that. And such was the chaos that French soldiers actually came up to his vehicle, hopefully asking, "Anglais?" But it was a ghost division for German command as well.
Anglais mean?
Rommel had presented them with a fait accompli. The French lines were breached, but on such a narrow front that many believed it was a trap set by the French to lure them in. Nonetheless, the success of his unauthorized push had not only saved countless German lives, but also decisively sped up the whole campaign by days or even weeks. The French Second Corps had dissolved in panic. The 1st French Armored Division was more or less wiped out, and many other French divisions were disorganized or badly mauled. Rommel's attack was an extreme version of German operational warfare, but its strongest effect was psychological. Anything short of a breakthrough would have seen Rommel court-martialed, but his success earned him the Knight's Cross instead. Adolf Hitler himself congratulated Rommel after the campaign, but also scolded him with the words, "Your raid has cost me a sleepless night." Hitler was certainly not the only one.
Okay, wait, so
Rommel after the campaign, but all instead.
this is that what that cross is that I've seen them wear? That's called the Knight's Cross. So is that kind of like a version of a German medal that you would get for like valor and war and stuff?
Hitler was certainly not the only one.
They are the Panzer Elite, born to compete, never retreat.
Whoa, they have a drum set on a tank?
Now, Ghost Division is one of the most, if not the most, requested songs of this entire Sabaton History series. And we haven't specifically saved it to starve people of what they want to see, but we wanted to space out like your hits and your most popular songs and stuff. Okay, so now we're here at Ghost Division. What's the first thing that leaps to your mind when you think of not the fans, not the popularity of the song, but the song?
Oh, good question. So much. I mean, it was new for us, that style being so hard-hitting and direct, but also so many memories. I mean,
Yeah.
some of the strongest memories we can have from a concert is the first couple of seconds on stage. Sometimes, we might have been on the stage sound checking, which
Yeah,
we
sure.
usually have, rarely see in the crowd. And for us, imagine some of the strongest memories I have is running out in front of hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands. And in a few cases, hundreds of thousands of people with the words, "Fast as the wind, the invasion has begun."
The invasion has begun. Shaking the ground with the force of thousand guns.
Those are powerful memories, my friends. That is, wow. Yeah, I got a reel playing in my head. I wish I could show you what's going on in my head right now. This is a weird one, actually. I remember it very clearly. It's how we're standing on stage. This is in Athens.
So Indie Night Out asked him to talk about the song itself and not like the concert and all that stuff, and he proceeds to talk about what it's like at the concert.
2008, 2009.
Okay, a little while ago.
Yeah, and we're playing the song Ghost Division. And all of a sudden, everything goes, I'm still singing this, but everything goes into slow motion mode, or, you know, maybe moving at a higher clock
So far,
frequency.
this is incredibly hippie, and I have
Yeah.
no idea where you're going with this.
There were no drugs involved in this experience. Anyway, I remember totally like, whoa, here I am in Greece, having a great time on a stage, great crowd, and I haven't had any other job in over a year. I guess I'm a professional musician. And that's how I realized.
Wow. Okay, that's a great ending to that. I really wondered where you were going with that. That's
No, that's how I
that's a
realized.
major pivotal moment in your life.
It was, and I mean, I wasn't, you know, I always loved music. I always wanted to play music. But for me to have that as my main profession, it wasn't a huge life goal. My life did not depend, or my happiness did not depend on that happening.
Okay, sure.
I loved playing music. I was going to do it as long as I could, but I always thought I'd do something else on the side. I'd train for radio stuff, music production,
Sure,
you know,
yeah.
stuff like that. So I
Yeah, but
thought
you
that-
are a good studio guy. Like even you like to sit around and twiddle by
Yes,
yourself. You know?
I do.
Yeah, you know, so.
So, I mean, I thought I'd be related to it, you know, in the industry somehow. But for me to just realize that, bam, on stage, this is over 10 years ago now. I remember that so clearly.
I have a very important question, and I'm not asking for me. I'm asking for all of the people. What was your last job before you didn't have to have another job? The very last one. You don't have to say which McDonald's it was.
How did you know?
I just lucky. You know?
No, it was for one of Sweden's larger telecommunications companies.
Okay.
Everything from helping customers on the phone to what also, well, if somebody was a technician and
Yeah.
patching a phone line, and they needed to know which patch to go into to connect the new phone service and stuff like that.
But was this done only by phone or internet? I asked because of your hair.
No, I was on the phone all the time.
is-
I would basically be on a computer terminal looking at.
This conversation has gone completely in a different direction than I was expecting. I was expecting them to like break down the song and like how they got to write it and, you know, all of that stuff. And we're talking about his telecommunications job.
Oh yeah, no, you can't use patch B5 because it's busy there. You'll have to go into that one or
this is-
install a new one.
But this is okay. This is a proper professional job. This is a white collar job.
Yep.
It's and had you not been famous, you could see yourself doing specifically that for the next 40 years, something along those lines.
No, not really. When I did that, I would only get like contracts for a couple of months and stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember clearly that I wanted to ask them for leave.
Yeah.
Where before we did the 2006 tour with Edguy and Dragon Force, we went on tour there. I asked for leave for like 2 months, and can I come back? And they told me like, no, I couldn't.
Going on tour.
I'm going on tour. Fuck you guys, basically.
Especially a major tour, like
yeah.
that's with Edgar and Dragon Force. That's a
That was the first big tour we did with Nightliners and everything. So
Yeah.
for us, it wasn't no easy deal for
You're
me.
not gonna say no to that. I mean, actually, to be honest, there are a lot of people that would say no to that, and that's a shame.
Yep.
Because okay, I understand. Let's say okay, if you have a pregnant girlfriend or a pregnant boyfriend and you have to take care of. I'm trying to be gender
Yeah,
neutral.
yeah,
And you're
no,
trying to take care. Yeah, I can understand. No, I've got to do a response. But
Well,
it was just you.
Yeah, it was just me, and it's also I totally understand everybody chooses a different path in life, and I am lucky in that way that I didn't have a super good employer, and I'm lucky that I didn't have
they
a
gave
really
you time
good.
that you came back.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, for me, it was an easy choice.
Yeah.
So I mean, in many cases, I know several really good musicians myself that aren't musicians because they. It's not only about their choices. It's where are you in your life when you have the opportunity to do something with your music? Have you spent years on another career? Do you have a good employer? Do you have a kid on the way?
Yeah.
All of these things. So I mean, I gotta say, we are pretty damn lucky. There's so many good musicians out there that
I'm absolutely
that
with you.
didn't do it.
And I'll tell you what, I've just decided, okay, you know how this episode's going to end? I want you to Photoshop it so it looks like he's flipping burgers, right? And then I want you to play really uplifting music, like, heartbreaking, like, no, it's not going to be, it doesn't have to, just a still picture.
Okay.
Or something. They're probably showing actually us talking about this, right? You know that. But it should say something like, to all those great musicians unsung. Thank you from Sabaton history. To all those musicians who sacrificed their musical lives for duty, for family, for honor, for fear, for complacency, or for even a better life. 10 points.
They are the bombs that are beat, all the complete, never get tricked. Living on death, always ahead, led by your dread. Bombs that are beat, all the complete, never get tricked. Living on death, always ahead, led by your dread.
Little pyro there.
All right, everyone.
Okay. I really don't know what that last, 10-15 minutes was about. Had nothing to do with the song at all. I mean, it was an interesting story hearing about, his decision to, go ahead with Sabaton and his musical career and stuff. I mean, I like listening to people talk about that stuff. It's really weird that they included that in this video. I feel like that's just the direction that the discussion took, and they were like, it would be horrible if we just cut it off there and didn't have any material to add in with this. So we'll just go with that. I don't know. And then they were acting just really weird, random stuff throughout. This is a kind of a weird veering off on this video that I wasn't expecting, but at least I learned a little bit about the history of the Ghost Division and what that was about. Okay, so we're gonna watch the music video now. I'm gonna listen to this full song. I've heard, of course, little glimpses of it in this video, but we'll go into the actual music video now.
Fast as the wind, the invasion has begun. Shaking the ground
1940,
with
okay.
1,000 guns. First in the line of fire, first into hostile land, tanks leading the way. Leading the way. Charging the lines with the force of a furious storm. Fast as the lightning phantom swarm. To crashing through a foreign land. Massive assault, live to serve the Nazi plan. Communications broken, hundreds of far away, lost learning their name, learning their fame. They are the Panzer elite, born to compete, never retreat. Living or dead, always ahead, fed by your dread.
Okay. Little keyboard in there.
Pushing the front line force with a tremendous force. Reaching the way for Panzer Corps. Crossing the line of fire. Thrust into hostile land. Tanks leading the way. Claiming the fame. They are the Panzer elite. Born to compete. Never retreat. Living or dead. Always ahead. Fed by your dread. Panzer elite. Born to compete. Never retreat. Living or dead. Always ahead. Fed by your dread.
Okay, so I will admit that when I was hearing the clips of this song during the history portion of this, and then the first half of this song, I was listening to it and I was like, I don't know if I like this one as well as some of the earlier songs that I listened to, which I can't remember what they were called now because it's been so long since I watched them. I still think the first one that I watched what is one of my favorites, but this one I think is one of the most aggressive sounding ones that I've heard so far. What kind of brought me in more was, I think it was a keyboard. It sounded more like a keyboard effect. I don't think it was a guitar, but you can correct me if that's wrong. The kind of the higher pitch part that comes in during the bridge of the song. When that kicked in, also by then I was hearing the repetition of the chorus more and more. So that, I liked that variety that the keyboard brought in because I've not heard that yet in any of their other songs. And then I also heard the background, they were talking about in some of the previous songs how they tried to do that like choral effect, bringing in like a choir type sound. And this is a song that I've heard that the most in because it's the background vocals sounded like a choir. So you have that and you have the keyboard and then just the really, really aggressive chorus. It took a little bit for my ear to really catch on to it, but it finally started to do that towards the end of the song. Yeah, I like this one. I think this one is going to be more of like a middle of the road one for me. I think maybe like the first one that I listened to, or maybe the second one. I wish I could remember. I'm trying to recall them. I'll have to like go back and look, but I think those two probably, maybe because of the first ones I listened to that I think they stuck out to me a little bit more, but I still like this one too. Like I said, I really like the keyboard that I haven't heard before. That really kind of makes it stand out a little bit more to me. I'll have to admit that I'm not a huge metal fan. Like I've never really been into metal music. I've never really listened to it much, but what I can appreciate about Sabaton is that their music is about all of these historical events, which I think is really, really unique to them. I guess, like, I don't know if there are other bands that do this as well. So I can at least appreciate it on that note. And of course, I still like to listen to their entire catalog, just because I think hearing the music and hearing the songs that they have about these different historical events kind of like helps cement them a little bit more in my head. So again, I'd like to watch one of their like live concerts, and hopefully with that I would hear like a whole string of these songs that I've listened to on my channel so far, and kind of hearing them more back to back I think will help me kind of decipher which ones are my favorite, which ones do I really like. So I look forward to doing that, but I want to watch a few more of their videos first before I get into that, because I'd like to at least be somewhat familiar with the songs when I listen to them like in a concert. or whatever. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, I'd appreciate a like and a subscribe if you haven't done that yet. And again, you'll find all my social media links in the description and the pinned comment. And if you guys are interested in watching my World War II World at War series from 1973, it's on Patreon. We are 9 episodes in, about to be 10 or 11. Maybe we're 10 episodes in. I can't remember off the top of my head. But plenty there to watch, and we'll be going through the rest of the episodes, all 26. So, Roger here and I, thank you guys for watching as always. We'll see you next time.